Today you guys are going to take some notes on the Pythagorean theorem. In order to use the Pythagorean theorem, you have to have a right triangle. So here are some facts about right triangles. Triangle ABC is a right triangle because it contains a right angle. Okay, and again that's indicated just like it was with parallel and perpendicular lines with this square here. AC and BC are the legs of the triangle. So this side, AC, and side BC, which are labeled A and B, are the legs. So this is a leg, and this is a leg. AB is the hypotenuse of triangle ABC. So that's this side here, and that's labeled C, and that's the hypotenuse. Okay, the hypotenuse is the side across from the right angle, and that will always be true. If this is the right angle in the corner, C will always be the longest side, and it will always be across from the right angle. The reason why this is important is because in the Pythagorean theorem, in a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the legs, okay, which are A and B and marked in the picture, is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. Again, the hypotenuse is marked as C. Hypotenuse is the longest side, and it looks that way, and it's always across from the right angle. The Pythagorean theorem in math symbols looks like this. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A and B are the legs, and C is the hypotenuse. The C has to be the hypotenuse. It has to be the longest side. A and B can be either one of the other legs. So, in an example, okay, we're going to say that one side is 5, the bottom side is 12, and this side over here is C. It says to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side. The first thing you need to do in order to use the Pythagorean theorem is you need to identify your legs and your hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's always across from the right angle. So C is your hypotenuse. Okay, that's important because in order to do A squared plus B squared equals C squared, okay, you have to pick the hypotenuse to go in for C. Okay, so C is going to stay missing. You're going to plug A and B in. These are the legs. It doesn't matter whether 5 is A or 5 is B. It doesn't matter. Just plug them in either spot. So you'll have 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. Now you're going to use your PEMDAS. Okay, your PEMDAS says to do your exponents before you add. So 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. Alright, now PEMDAS tells you to add. So 25 plus 144 is 169. Okay. Now, in order to solve this for C, which is what we want, you have to take the square root, which is why we spent all week last week working on square roots. Okay, you're going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of C squared is just C, so now we have C all by itself. The square root of 169, you type that into your calculator, and you will get a whole number of 13. So your legs are 5 and 12, and your hypotenuse is 13, which is the longest side. And it is. Alright, here's another example. Okay, again we want to use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. First thing you need to do is identify the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is going to be the longest side, and it's going to always be across from the right angle. So 15 is our hypotenuse. So in the Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, C has to be 15. That's the most important thing. You need to make sure that you put the hypotenuse on the side by itself. The other two numbers, 9 and B, which are the legs, it doesn't matter if you do 9 squared plus B squared or B squared plus 9 squared. Okay? Doesn't matter. Alright, now you're going to PEMDAS. PEMDAS tells you to square. So 9 squared in the calculator is 81. B squared is, we have no idea, so we'll leave it like that. 15 squared, if you put that in the calculator, you get 225. Now if you notice, this problem looks a little different than the last problem. On the last problem, our variable was over here on this side by itself. In this case, it's not. So in order to solve for B, I have to move 81, and this goes back to our equations that we talked about at the beginning of the year. It's a positive 81, so you're going to subtract 81 from both sides. The 81s will cross out, leaving you with B squared equals 225 minus 81 in your calculator. That'll give you 144. Now again, we're looking for B, not B squared. So in order to solve for B, we have to take the square root of both sides. The opposite of a square is a square root. So take the square root. That'll leave you with a regular old B all by itself. And then the square root of 144 in your calculator is 12. Since it's a whole number, we're done and we don't have to do anything. Okay, so one side of the triangle is 9, the other side is 12, and the hypotenuse is 15, which is still the longest side. Alright, next example, this A is supposed to be over here. Okay, first thing you want to do for the Pythagorean theorem is identify your hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest side and it's always across from the right angle. This is my right angle. So across from it is 16, so I need to do A squared plus B squared equals the hypotenuse, C squared. The hypotenuse is 16. It's across from the right angle. So I'm going to have A squared plus 11 squared on the other side. This is similar to the last problem. Okay, you're going to square everything, but then we're going to have to turn around and move this 11 so we can get it away from the A. So go ahead and square everything in your calculator. 11 squared is 121. 16 squared is 256. Now, just like the last problem, you're going to have to solve this equation. Subtract 121 from both sides. And you'll be left with A squared equals 256 minus 121, which is 135. If you put, then you want to solve for A squared, so take the square root. Okay, a square root undoes a square, and you'll get A equals 11.6189, blah, 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 blah. Alright, this is not a whole number, so this is why we spent an entire week doing that factor tree stuff. Is for this purpose. Okay, we did not get a whole number, so we're going to have to factor tree this. So A is the square root of 135. You want to factor tree this. Find the things that divide evenly into 135. Since it ends in a 5, I know it'll divide by 5. 135 divided by 5 in the calculator is 27. 27's not prime, so you're going to have to factor tree that. So bring down your 5. 27 divides by 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 9's not prime, so you'll need to factor that. So bring down your 5 and your 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So now we have all our prime numbers we're ready to circle. Okay? 3 and 3 are pairs. This 3 is not a pair, and 5 is not a pair. So your 3's will come out, and in your square root house you'll have a 5 times 3, which is 15. So your side of the triangle is 3 square root of 15, which if you put that in the calculator, that's the same as 11.61 or 62. Okay. Alright, go ahead and try this one on your own. Okay, pause the video and try it, and when you're done, come back and hit play. Alright, first thing you need to do is identify the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest side across from the right angle. So in this picture, 15 is the hypotenuse. So you will have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so we'll have 10 is a leg, b is a leg, and 15 is the hypotenuse. It's important that the hypotenuse goes on the side by itself. Now square everything. In your calculator, you'll get 100 plus b squared equals 225. Again, like the previous two problems, you need to solve for b, so go ahead and subtract 100 from both sides. So b squared equals 125. Okay, now we're not done. We haven't solved for b yet, which is what we wanted. So you need to take the square root of both sides, okay, which will leave you with b equals 11.18. Again, like in the previous problem, this tells you that you need to do a factor tree. So we are going to factor tree 125. Okay, 125 is also divisible by 5 because it ends in a 5. 125 divided by 5 is 25. 25 is not prime, so you need to break that down, so bring your 5. 25 is also divisible by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. We have all prime numbers, so we're ready to circle. Okay, one pair of the 5s can come out. The other 5 does not have a pair. He has to stay inside. So this pair of 5s right here is going outside, and this 5 that we underlined is going inside. And you're done. So b is equal to 5 square root of 5. Okay, which is really the same as 11.18. So that means 15 is the longest side, which is the hypotenuse, so that works out.